4437 was split into two colors, black and violet, each bleeding into the other like bruised flesh. Lightning forked down in jagged, unnatural patterns, not from clouds but from the fractured air itself. The land below was dead, an endless spread of shattered rock, petrified forests, and the skeletal remains of cities long since abandoned. Once, this had been a thriving Earth. Now it was just a stage for the last fight its heroes would ever have. The Justice League here had been warped by their dying world, their powers twisted into something monstrous. Superman was a living furnace, molten cracks running down his skin, his heat vision flaring uncontrollably with every breath. Wonder Woman had taken to the ocean's depths, her skin patterned in scales, and her eyes a predatory gold. Green Lantern's ring glowed in surges, his constructs jagged and incomplete, as if his willpower had been shattered but was still clawing to exist. Beside them stood Earth, 4437's Batman, an armored knight in blackened plate, his cape tattered into banner-like strips that whipped in the hot wind, the visor of his helm etched with runes meant to ward off evil spirits. They faced the figure who had reduced their planet to rubble. Not Brainiac, not Darkseid, not any devil from their nightmares. This one wore no emblem, no armor. He was tall, lean, dressed in a deep green coat that barely moved despite the gale. His hair black as oil, his eyes a pale glacial gray. His name was not known to them, but in another universe it was whispered like a curse. Morlun. The battle had been raging for hours. Superman's molten fist slammed into Morlun with the force of meteors, shaking the ground. Wonder Woman's trident carved the air, the edges glinting with Atlantean steel. Lantern's jagged constructs stabbed from every direction like a closing cage. And yet, Morlun moved through it all as though he were walking through tall grass, slow, deliberate, his strikes precise. He caught Superman's wrist mid-punch, his fingers tightening, until the Man of Steel's molten skin hissed against his grip. With a motion that was almost casual, Morlun twisted. There was a crack, a scream, and Superman collapsed, steam hissing from the black wound where Morlun's hand had passed. Wonder Woman lunged, roaring, but Morlun caught her trident and pushed forward. The weapon's haft splintering as his other hand clamped over her face. She thrashed, her scaled skin tearing against his nails. A moment later, her body went limp, and he let her fall into the dust. The Lantern tried to retreat into the air, summoning a construct shield, but Morlun was already there, his fingers piercing the emerald light like it was smoke. The ring bearer screamed once before Morlun drained him, leaving behind only a cracked, blackened shell of a man. Only Batman remained. The Knight Batman was on one knee, his breathing ragged inside the steel helm. His armor bore scorch marks from Superman's accidental blasts and deep slashes from Wonder Woman's flailing strikes. This fight had been chaos from the start, even before Morlun's arrival. In his hand, he clutched a batarang unlike any Bruce Wayne had ever used, forged from meteorite iron, etched with ancient wards, its edges dipped in venom from a long-extinct predator. He rose slowly, the storm flashing behind him, the wind catching his cape until it looked like torn wings. "You're not from here," Batman rasped through the helm. His voice was distorted by the metal, like the growl of something both human and beast. "No," Morlun said, stepping closer, his boots crunching over the black stone. "But you are everywhere." Batman's eyes narrowed behind the visor. "You killed gods tonight. You won't kill me." Morlun's smile was faint, almost pitying. "Not gods, pretenders. You, however, you are something older, a predator cloaked in myth. I can taste it in the air." The night Batman struck first, the meteorite batarang cutting a silver arc through the lightning-streaked dark. Morlun caught it between two fingers. For an instant, the wards flared, burning his skin, and then he snapped the weapon in half. Batman didn't hesitate, driving forward with a shoulder charge that sent them both into a crumbling pillar. He hammered at Morlun's ribs, each strike ringing like a blacksmith's anvil, but Morlun only grinned wider. The feeding was quick, a blur of motion and sound. A gasp cut short, the shutter of armor collapsing inward, the heavy thud of a body hitting stone. Morlun straightened, the knight's helm still in his hand, drops of rain running down its dented surface. Inside, the face was pale, the eyes wide and unseeing. As the storm roared, Morlun lifted his head and closed his eyes. He could feel it now, the resonance of this bat's essence, rippling outward, calling to others across realities. Every world with a bat carried the same primal chord, and now he had the first note. Somewhere in the distance, universes away, countless Batmen shivered without knowing why. Morlun opened his eyes, their pale gray burning faintly in the dark. Let the hunt begin. The web of life and destiny was gone to him, not destroyed, never destroyed, but sealed, its strands humming, faintly in the far reaches of reality, where he could no longer touch them. Morlun had walked its threads for centuries, stalking prey through infinite worlds, feeding on spider totems and leaving their husks in his wake. But after the events of the Spider-Verse, the Master Weaver had cut him off, trapping his siblings in exile and leaving him stranded in a cold, starless void between universes. It should have been the end. It wasn't. The void was not empty. It pulsed, faintly at first like a heartbeat, behind a wall. Morlun wandered for what felt like years. Time here was meaningless, following that pulse until the nothingness began to ripple. He saw them then. Fragments of other worlds bleeding into his prison, a crimson sky shattering to reveal a green-tinged one beneath, a cathedral collapsing into a city of metal towers, and through the fractures a storm unlike any he had ever seen. Black and violet skies, lightning crawling across the horizon. He stepped through. That was Earth 4437, the rock and the storm. The night Batman had been his first taste of something new. It was not the same as a spider totem. The essence was colder, heavier. Spiders carried stories of patience, webs, inevitability. The bat was pure fear, sharpened into an edge that could cut across worlds. When Morlun fed, he felt his own instincts shift. There was no Weaver here to limit him, no spider hierarchy to obey. The bat archetype was unclaimed, its echoes scattered and unprotected. For the first time in centuries, he was free to hunt as he pleased. He needed to understand what he had taken. Morlun moved through Earth, 4437's ruin, until he found the remains of its Hall of Records, half buried under molten stone. He tore the doors from their hinges and stepped into the dust, scanning shelves of data crystals and scorched books. In one chamber he found murals older than the Justice League itself. A black figure with wings like knives, hunting men around a fire. Each world, it seemed, had its own first bat. A point in history where man and myth merged into something more. The night Batman had been just one in a chain, stretching across the multiverse. In the shadows of that chamber, something shifted. It wasn't fear, he could taste that well enough. This was older, more calculating. A voice came from the dark, deep and low, like the echo of a cave. You don't belong here. Morlun's head turned. A figure stepped into the flicker of dying light. Tall, robed in black and crimson, his face hidden beneath a cowl of impossible angles. But you will serve a purpose, the stranger continued. The bats are converging. Their universes are in flux. Kill enough of them and the core will be exposed. Kill the core and you will own more than prey. You will own fear itself. Morlun's lips curved faintly. And you are? The figure didn't answer. The air warped where he stood, folding in on itself until only a whisper remained. Perpetua remembers her servants. Morlun stepped forward, his boots grinding dust into the floor. He had heard the name Perpetua before, in the cracks of old universes, among whispers of the architects who shaped all things. If one of her agents wanted him unleashed, then the hunt was not only permitted, it was sanctioned. He left Earth 4437 through a tear in the sky, following the pull of the bat essence, like a predator tracking scent trails. Across infinite strands of reality, he felt them now. Dark minds wrapped in capes and cowls, each infused with the same primal chord. Some would be warriors, some would be monsters, all would be prey. In a Gotham that was not his own, another Batman stirred. Prime Earth's Bruce Wayne was in the Batcave, hunched over a forensic display of dead satellites and cosmic radiation scans. The data wasn't consistent with alien invasion, magic, or even Speed Force distortion. It was something else entirely. In the corner of the cave, a glass case rattled faintly. Inside was the empty suit of the Batman who laughs. Alfred, Bruce said quietly, run a check on multiversal energy spikes over the past 72 hours. Focus on signatures not native to our sector. The butler's voice crackled over comms. Something's coming, sir. Bruce's eyes narrowed as a cold shiver ran down his spine. The first in years. No, he said. Something's hunting. The first body was found in the rain-soaked alleyways of Earth, 1889, the gas lamp world of Gotham by gaslight. Detective Bruce Wayne, a man who hunted Jack the Ripper through fog and shadow, was slumped against a brick wall, his greatcoat torn open at the chest. His mask was gone, his face pale, his veins blackened like roots spreading under ice. The gaslights above flickered and hissed as Inspector Gordon knelt beside him, whispering his friend's name. But the eyes staring back were already glass, a fine dust, black, brittle, and warm to the touch, blue from the wound in his chest, carried away by the London wind. Morlun was gone before the police even arrived. 2 days later, in the steel spires of Neo-Gotham, the Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis, chased a fugitive across the maglev train lines. His suit's AI pinged an intruder warning from the upper city, but the sensors couldn't get a lock. By the time Terry landed on the roof of the Wayne Powers Tower, the intruder was already there, waiting. Morlun moved faster than any assassin Terry had ever faced, catching him mid-flight and slamming him through 3 floors of reinforced glass. In the panic, Terry managed to blast Morlun point blank with the suit's forearm cannons, the energy crackling across his frame. But Morlun only staggered for a heartbeat before ripping the power cells from Terry's suit. The last thing Terry saw was Morlun's pale eyes reflecting the neon city lights as everything went black. The killings weren't random, they were stepping stones. On Earth 43, a place where the sky was the color of dry blood and the moon hung too low, Vampire Batman had been ruling the night for centuries. He was fast, strong, and virtually immortal. The Predator's predator. But when Morlun came for him, the battle tore through an entire cathedral. Stone gargoyles shattered, centuries-old pews splintered under their weight. The vampire's fangs found Morlun's throat once, but the blood he drew burned like acid in his mouth. Morlun laughed, a deep mocking sound, before sinking his own teeth into the vampire's neck, draining both blood and essence, until the immortal crumbled into ash. In the Batcave of Prime Earth, Bruce stood before a map of the multiverse, a holographic sphere lit with red points of light. Each point was a death, gaslight, beyond, vampire, others too obscure for Bruce to know without research. A cybernetic Batman from a machine world, a desert nomad Batman wrapped in sand-scarred cloth, a skeletal Batman wielding a scythe, all gone in under a week. The worst part wasn't the frequency, it was the pattern. Each kill was spaced exactly 47 hours apart. Bruce didn't need the world's greatest detective title to see what that meant. This wasn't a spree. This was a hunt with a schedule. In another Gotham, one not yet touched, Batman 89 stood on the rooftop of the Monarch Theater, the place where his legend had begun. Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne had grown older, slower, but his mind was as sharp as ever. When the intruder came, he knew it wasn't one of his rogues. There was no theatrics, no threat, just a man-shaped shadow stepping out of the lightning. Keaton Batman fought hard, using every trick in the belt, even detonating a bat grenade at point-blank range. It barely singed Morlun's coat. A minute later, the cowl lay empty on the theater's cracked tiles. Back in Prime Earth's Batcave, Alfred's voice was tight over comms. "That's 6 Batmen in 11 days, sir." Bruce's hands clenched over the console. "We need to get them together, all of them, before he takes the rest." "Assuming," Alfred said quietly, "that he doesn't simply follow them to the meeting." Bruce's eyes flicked to the far corner of the cave, where the cosmic treadmill had been collecting dust since the last Flash visit. "Then we make sure the meeting's somewhere he can't reach." But somewhere beyond the cave, beyond the safety of any one Earth, Morlun was already smiling. He could feel them now, all of them, the living and the dying, like candles in a dark room. And soon, he would snuff them out one by one until only the brightest flame remained. The Mobius chamber was never meant to hold this many people. Certainly not this many versions of the same person. Built into a dead pocket of reality where time was slowed to a crawl, the chamber floated in an endless gray void, anchored only by the will of the Mobius chair itself. Its black stone floor curved upward into towering walls of dim, alien circuitry. A faint hum ran through the air, like the whisper of an old machine dreaming. Prime Earth's Bruce Wayne stood at the center, his cape hanging in the still air. To his left was the cosmic treadmill, humming faintly after hours of recalibration. Beside it, Barry Allen was catching his breath, hands on his knees. "That's the last of them," Barry said. "If there are more, they're hiding." Bruce turned his gaze to the gathering. It was like looking into a hall of mirrors, each reflection shaped by a different world. Flashpoint Batman, Thomas Wayne, in his red-trimmed armor, jaw set tight, eyes sharp as scalpels. Darkclaw half-cowl and feral grin, adamantium claws glinting in the Mobius light. Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis, his high-tech suit folding back to reveal a face far younger than most expected. Vampire Batman, pale and silent, shadows clinging unnaturally to him. Batman who laughs, chains rattling softly as he chuckled to himself in the corner. Batman 89, older, grim, his movements deliberate like a man who's counted every step left in his life. Arkham Batman, armored and broad-shouldered, his eyes hidden behind glowing white lenses. Dark Knight Batman, Bale, his voice a low gravel when he spoke, arms crossed like he was sizing up a room of suspects. Animated Batman, sharper around the edges than the two-dimensional lines implied, every movement like a frame lifted from another reality. Brave and the bold Batman, bright-eyed yet equally serious, his colorful suit an odd contrast to the gloom. Bone Bat Batman, wearing armor of jagged bone and wielding a stone blade. Mech Bat Batman, a towering armored frame piloted by a scarred Bruce, visible behind reinforced glass. Batmite Batman, no taller than a child, floating a few inches off the ground, muttering about canon inconsistencies. They didn't speak at first. They simply watched each other, calculating. "This is ridiculous," Thomas Wayne said finally. His voice was colder than Bruce's, stripped of patience. "We're scattered across universes. Our numbers are already cut in half, and you want us to sit in a room?" Bruce stepped forward. "I want us to survive. One hunter is killing us on a schedule. We don't know how he chooses his targets, but if we're together, we can coordinate, share intel, and paint a bigger target," Arkham Batman interrupted, his voice sharp. "If he finds us here, it's over before it starts." Brave and the bold Batman raised a hand, like he was mediating a meeting. "Maybe what we need is a little optimism, teamwork, friendship." The words didn't land. No one smiled. The Batman who laughs leaned forward, his metal visor gleaming. "I say we split up. Go to our worlds, wait for him, let him come, and when he does, feed him until he bursts." His laughter scraped against the walls. "Or he kills you," Dark Claw growled, claws sliding out with a metallic snick. "And the rest of us have one less body between him and the next target." A low voice cut through the noise. Animated Batman. "Argue later. Prep now. You've all fought predators. This one is older than any of us. He's patient, he's precise, and he's learning with every kill." Bruce nodded. "We can't fight him like he's a rogue. We fight him like he's a force of nature." Before anyone could answer, the Mobius chamber shook. Not violently, just enough for every head to turn. A ripple ran through the void outside, distorting the gray into jagged streaks of black and white. The mech-bat's sensors flared. Something's breached the perimeter. In the corner, the Batman who laughs grinned wider. "Looks like he found us." The ripple in the void became a tear, slow at first, as if reality itself was resisting. Then it split wide, edges fraying like torn fabric, spilling white light into the Mobius chamber. The Batmen turned in unison. Even without seeing the figure beyond the breach, they could feel him. That primal, suffocating presence that made the hairs rise on the back of their necks. Morlun stepped through as if he were crossing a threshold into his own home. The light collapsed behind him, leaving only the gray void outside. His green coat was unmarked despite the dozens of battles they'd heard about. His expression calm, almost curious, like a collector inspecting rare artifacts. His pale eyes swept the gathering slowly, as if committing every version of them to memory. "You've saved me time," Morlun said, his voice carrying across the chamber without echo. "All of you. Here." No one moved. Then Darkclaw snarled and leapt first, claws flashing. Morlun caught him mid-air by the wrist, twisting until the adamantium bent with a scream of metal. Darkclaw roared and slashed with the other hand. But Morlun stepped inside the strike, driving his fist into the amalgam's chest. The sound was wet, sharp. When Morlun pulled back, Darkclaw stumbled once and collapsed, his essence already draining in black veins across his skin. Within seconds, the body was nothing but a brittle husk on the floor. The chamber exploded into motion. Mech-Bat's gauntlets unfolded into plasma cannons, firing in a blinding burst. Arkham Batman moved low and fast, using the distraction to circle behind Morlun, while Vampire Batman came in from the side, fangs bared. The blast hit square, searing across Morlun's torso, but instead of staggering, he turned with an almost bored grace, letting the energy roll over him before shattering one of the mech-bat's arm cannons with a single backhand strike. Vampire Batman struck from behind, teeth sinking into Morlun's neck. For a heartbeat, it looked like the Predator might actually draw blood. Then Morlun's hand shot up, gripping the vampire by the skull, and wrenched him over his shoulder, slamming him into the floor with such force the stone cracked beneath him. He didn't feed yet. He wanted them to watch. "Everything about you," Morlun said, voice low, "is the same. The posture, the eyes, the fear you inspire. It's beautiful. And when you're gone, no one will remember it." Prime Bruce was already moving, gesturing for Terry, Batman Beyond, to flank left, while animated Batman and Brave and the bold Batman fell back toward the cosmic treadmill. Thomas Wayne had a pistol in each hand, the muzzles flashing in rhythm as he fired silver-tipped rounds. They hit Morlun's skin and sizzled, drawing his attention just long enough for Arkham Batman to slam an electrified gauntlet into the back of his head. The blow staggered him. Not much, but enough for Bruce to see it. "Hit him in sequence," he shouted. For the next 15 seconds, the chamber was a storm of coordinated strikes. Mechbat unloading what power remained in his core batteries. Vampire Batman clawing across Morlun's face. Arkham Batman hammering at his ribs. Thomas Wayne's gunfire keeping him off balance. It was working, until it wasn't. Morlun caught Vampire Batman by the throat, draining him in a single, fluid motion that left the vampire's body crumbling into ash between his fingers. Before the rest could react, he blurred forward, seizing Batman 89 by the collar and hurling him into the wall hard enough to fracture the stone. The older Bruce slid down the impact, his breath rattling, unable to rise. "We can't win like this," animated Batman said, voice tight, eyes on the treadmill. Prime Bruce's mind was already there. "Get everyone who can't keep fighting off-world, now!" Barry was at the controls before Bruce finished the sentence, fingers flying over the console. The treadmill's rings began to spin, arcs of light spilling into the air. Morlun's gaze shifted to the machine. A slow smile crept across his face. Running will only make the hunt sweeter. Arkham Batman stepped between Morlun and the treadmill, cape drawn, stance low. "Then you'll have to go through me." Morlun obliged. The Mobius chamber was silent again, the breach sealed and the void outside still. They'd bought themselves minutes at most. Batman 89 sat against the far wall, his breath shallow, one gloved hand pressed to his ribs. Two Batmen gone, Darkclaw and Vampire, in less than 10 minutes. If Morlun had stayed another 30 seconds, the casualty list would have doubled. Prime Bruce stood at the center console, the holographic multiverse map spinning slowly above him. Each Earth shimmered like a star, the dead ones glowing a faint red. "He's not retreating," Bruce said. "He's repositioning. We don't wait for the next strike. We find him." "Split up," Thomas Wayne said, reloading his pistols. "Force him to spread thin. Track his feeding pattern. Put him down." Brave and the bold Batman crossed his arms. "Or we just double the number of people he can kill." "Not if we move smart," Arkham Batman growled. "Small teams, multiple fronts, each with a fallback plan." Bruce nodded. "We hit him in 3 worlds where his trail is still warm. If we're lucky, we catch him between feeds." The plan formed quickly. Team 1, Flashpoint Batman and Dark Knight Batman, would follow Morlun's scent to Earth 9987, a crime-ravaged city where a cult had begun wearing Spider-Man masks in worship of an unseen hunter. Team 2, Batman Beyond and Arkham Batman, would travel to Earth 157, a cyberpunk Gotham run entirely by corporations, where Morlun's feeding signatures clustered in the tallest megastructures. Team 3, Brave and the Bold Batman and Animated Batman, would enter Earth 293, a surreal cartoon-like reality where physical laws warped unpredictably, making every fight a risk of reality collapse. Prime Bruce stayed behind with Barry, Batman 89, Mech-Bat, and Bone Bat Batman, using the Mobius chamber as mission control. Earth 9987, the Hunter's City. The sky was the color of rust, and the streets below were painted in graffiti of a spider's skull. Flashpoint Thomas and Bale's Dark Knight moved through the alleys like twin shadows, guns and gadgets ready. The cultists came first, dozens of them, their faces hidden behind crude webbed masks, chanting Morlun's name like a prayer. Thomas didn't hesitate. Bullets cut through the mob, while Bale's Batman used smoke and precision strikes to take the rest down. But when they reached the cult's inner sanctum, the air was thick with decay. Dozens of drained bodies, not cultists but other heroes of this earth, hung like grotesque trophies from chains. A single claw mark, deep and deliberate, had been carved into the wall. Morlun's mark. Earth 157. The Glass Hive. Neo-Gotham here was vertical. Towers stacked on towers, until the streets were lost in permanent shadow. Batman Beyond and Arkham, Batman moved like predators through the glass corridors of the upper spires, tracking Morlun's feeding signature to a sealed penthouse. The doors slid open to reveal a feeding lair unlike anything they'd seen. Transparent cylinders filled with preserved Batmen, each frozen mid-motion, their essence siphoned through cables into a humming machine. In the largest cylinder, a Batman in white armor floated, his eyes closed, a faint smile on his lips. The plaque read, Earth 227, the White Bat. "This isn't hunting," Terry said quietly. "This is farming." Before they could investigate further, the air temperature dropped. A shadow moved between the cylinders. Morlun was here. Earth 293, the impossible streets. The world was bright and wrong. Buildings curved sideways. Gravity shifted without warning, and the sun blinked in and out like a faulty light bulb. Brave and the Bold Batman looked perfectly at home, flipping from rooftop to rooftop with a confident smile, while Animated Batman kept his eyes scanning the horizon for distortion flares. They found Morlun mid-feed, draining a caped figure whose face flickered between a human jawline and a cartoon smile. The sight was unsettling even for seasoned, multiversal travelers. Brave and the Bold called out, his voice booming like a Saturday morning intro. "Your hunting days are over, Morlun." Morlun turned, unfazed. "I have so many left." The fight that followed bent the rules of physics. Punches stretched across streets, kicks sent shockwaves through clouds, and every missed strike risked tearing the paneled fabric of the world. But even in this absurd reality, Morlun's strength was absolute. Only Animated Batman's quick thinking, luring him into a gravity flip zone and sending him plummeting into an inverted skyscraper, gave them the chance to escape with their lives. Back in the Mobius chamber, Bruce listened to the reports come in, each one confirming what he already suspected. Morlun wasn't just killing Batmen. He was collecting them, studying them, refining his hunts. Every layer was a step towards something larger. Bone Bat Batman broke the silence. "He's not just after us now, he's after the first." Bruce met his gaze. "Then we find it before he does." Somewhere in the void, Morlun was already moving to his next kill, and the map above the console flickered. another red point blooming in the dark. The Mobius chamber felt heavier now. The red points on the multiverse map had doubled since the mission began. Not from their teams, but from other Batmen they'd never had time to reach. Each new kill was another reminder that, even with coordination, Morlun was moving faster than them. Bruce paced the perimeter, cataloging every detail from the field reports. Feeding layers, trophies, preservation tanks. All of it spoke to a predator thinking far beyond the next meal. But what gnawed at him most was the precision. 47 hours between kills, never once deviating. It wasn't a random cycle, it was a clock ticking towards something they couldn't see. In the far corner of the chamber, chained and smiling, sat the Batman who laughs. He'd been silent since the first strike, his laughter absent, but his eyes always darting between the other Batmen like a man assembling a puzzle. "You're missing it," he said finally, his voice like broken glass. Bruce turned, jaw tightening. Missing what? The pattern. It's not just who he's killing, it's where he's killing them. He's stitching a shape across the multiverse, one that leads to the heart of it all. The grin widened. "I could take you there." "No," Bruce said flatly. "The moment you're free, you're as much of a threat as he is." The Batman who laughs chuckled low. "Oh, I know. That's what makes this fun." Later, when the teams regrouped from another failed interception, Bruce found himself alone at the central console, studying the kill map. The chain that bound the Batman who laughs to the wall was empty. The alarm klaxons didn't sound until the breach was already open. Morlun stepped through, but he wasn't alone. Standing just behind him, head tilted in mock reverence, was the Batman who laughs, unchained, grinning, eyes hidden behind the spiked visor. "Your little pet showed me the way," Morlun said calmly. "In exchange, I let him live. For now." Thomas Wayne drew both pistols, firing silver rounds into Morlun's chest. They barely slowed him. The Batman who laughs moved faster than most expected, slashing Bone Bat Batman across the spine with a blade dipped in Joker toxin. Bone Bat staggered once before collapsing, the toxin already warping his face into a rigid grin. Arkham Batman charged Morlun head on, gauntlets sparking with electricity, only for Morlun to sidestep, grab him by the cowl, and hurl him into Mech Bat's chest, toppling the armored giant. Terry's Batman Beyond suit lit up as he dove in, firing his pulse cannons at both targets, but the Batman who laughs blurred past him, landing a serrated batarang deep into Terry's thigh. Bruce was moving before he even realized it, tackling the Batman who laughs into the wall. "Why?" he growled. "Oh, Bruce," the laughing Batman whispered. "You think you're the one who gets to decide what survives?" Behind them, Morlun had already drained Arkham Batman, the armored figure falling with a heavy, final thud. The Predator turned toward the rest with deliberate slowness, his pale eyes locking on Batman 89. Bruce saw it coming and lunged, but Morlun's hand was already at the older Batman's chest. One surge, and the light in those weary eyes was gone. The cowl hit the floor, empty. The Batman who laughs pulled free from Bruce's grip, slipping toward the breach. "See you at the finish line," he called, before stepping back into the void. The tier closed, leaving silence. "Team Sendendam, that's a wad," broken only by the echo of the Mobius chambers, failing hum. 3 more Batmen gone. The survivors were breathing hard, eyes wide, the air thick with the smell of ozone and burnt circuits. Barry's voice was low. "If he has an inside man now, we'll never stay ahead of him." Bruce stared at the empty space where the breach had been. "Then we stop trying to stay ahead. We start pulling him in." The Gotham they chose was already dying. Earth, 479's version of the city, had been abandoned decades ago. its skyline half swallowed by the sea, the lower streets flooded in black water. Skyscrapers leaned like gravestones, their steel bones jutting out into the night sky. Somewhere deep in the ruins, a lone bat signal still hung from the GCPD roof, its glass shattered, the bulb long dead. It was perfect. "This is where we make our stand," Prime Bruce said, his voice carrying over the comms to the scattered teams. Barry had spent the last day weaving Speed Force currents through the city's skeleton, turning abandoned rail lines into high-voltage traps, seeding rooftops with kinetic explosives, and wiring the submerged lower levels to collapse at a signal. The whole city was a mousetrap, every street a spring waiting to snap. Arkham Batman was gone. Batman 89 was gone. Darkclaw, Bone Bat, Vampire gone. That left Prime Bruce, Thomas Wayne, Terry, patched up but limping, Mech Bat, Animated Batman, Brave and the Bold Batman, and the few specialists they could trust, including a silent, stone-faced Batman from a forgotten Earth who only called himself the Wraith. The plan was simple. Broadcast the hunt. Let Morlun know where they were. Let him see them move through the city like wounded prey. The Batman who laughs wouldn't be able to resist leading him in personally. Preparation. Thomas Wayne took the rooftops, setting up a sniper's nest with armor-piercing rounds laced with silver and kryptonite dust. Not because it would kill Morlun, but because it might make him pause. Terry wired the upper levels with EMP charges that would detonate when Morlun crossed specific choke points. Mechbat planted seismic detonators in the subway tunnels, enough to bring whole blocks down at once. Animated Batman mapped every shadow in the city, marking vantage points and ambush lines. Bruce oversaw it all from the old clock tower, his cowl feeding him the city's heartbeat through dozens of synced sensors. Each echo, each ripple was logged. When the breach came, he'd know. The breach. It was almost anticlimactic when it happened. A faint shimmer at the end of a flooded avenue, then a vertical line splitting the air. Morlun stepped through with the Batman who laughs at his side. The Predator's coat trailed through the water without picking up a drop. His eyes scanned the skyline slowly, savoring the game. "They're here," the laughing Batman said, grinning, like he'd found the punchline to the last joke in existence. The first trap went off before they even reached the central block. An EMP burst, that plunged the entire city into blackness. Morlun kept walking, unfazed, until Terry's pulse cannons hit him in the chest, driving him back a step. Thomas's sniper round came next, the silver kryptonite slug hitting Morlun in the shoulder, burning on contact. It was the first time any of them had seen his expression break. Not pain, irritation. The hunt in reverse. The Batman moved like ghosts, attacking in pairs, then vanishing before Morlun could fix on their location. Animated Batman struck from the rafters of an old train station. Brave and the Bold slammed him into an electrified rail. Mechbat fired his plasma core point blank. The city shook under every exchange. For a moment, it worked. Morlun was bleeding. Not much, but enough to prove he could be hurt. Bruce could feel the rhythm shifting, the Predator adjusting, recalculating. That's when he gave the order. Collapse the tunnels. Mechbat hit the detonator. The ground roared as the subway system gave way, entire streets folding into the dark water below. Morlun dropped into the flood with them, vanishing into the spray. Silence. Then, movement. Morlun erupted from the water like a shark breaching, his hand closing around Brave and the Bold Batman's throat. One twist and the bright-eyed Batman went limp. The Predator dropped the body into the water, letting it sink without a second glance. The traps were slowing him, but the cost was mounting. Back in the clock tower, Bruce's jaw was set. "We keep him here," he said into the comms. "If he leaves the city alive, it's over." Outside Morlun stood in the rain, the body count rising, the Batman who laughs watching with silent delight. The hunt had finally become a siege. The rain had not stopped since the breach. It ran in black rivulets down the leaning glass towers, dripped from corroded gargoyles, and pooled in the skeletal streets of Earth 479's Gotham. Every sensor in the clock tower pulsed with heat signatures, water displacement, and noise. Most of it was false: rats, collapsing debris, flooding. But one pattern kept moving against the tide, slow, deliberate, and unerringly toward the clock tower. Bruce knew without checking who it was. "Hold your positions," his voice echoed through the comms. "He's pushing us to break formation. Don't take the bait." Somewhere in the east quarter, Terry's voice came back, tight with static. "Not taking the bait, boss. Bait's coming to me." The feed from Terry's visor flashed across Bruce's HUD, a dark silhouette moving through the submerged lower streets, chest deep in water. Terry dropped from the overhang of a collapsed freeway, pulse cannons lighting up the night in rapid bursts. Morlun didn't dodge. He walked through the blasts, each one illuminating his pale, water-slick face. When Terry tried to retreat, Morlun lunged with impossible speed, one hand closing around the wing of the Beyond suit and tearing it clean off. "Fall back," Bruce barked, already pivoting to track Morlun's movement. Terry launched his grapnel, but Morlun yanked it mid-flight, dragging the younger Batman off his perch and slamming him through a billboard. The sound carried even to Bruce's position. A heartbeat later, Terry's comm went dead. North Sector Thomas Wayne's last stand. From his sniper nest, Thomas Wayne watched the scene unfold through a cracked scope. His jaw tightened. "Changing sectors. I'm not letting him get to you." Before Bruce could object, Thomas was already moving across the rooftops, trenchcoat whipping in the rain. He leapt the final gap and dropped into Morlun's path, both pistols drawn. The first shots were armor-piercing, the second volley silver, the last two kryptonite laced. Each round hit with perfect placement. Throat, temple, sternum. But Morlun didn't slow. The Predator's hand shot out, catching Thomas by the wrist and crushing bone in one fluid motion. Thomas snarled, head-butting him hard enough to split his own brow, then drove a combat knife into Morlun's ribs. The blade bent. Morlun's other hand found Thomas's chest, and the Flashpoint Batman's breath caught in his throat. "Another broken night," Morlun said quietly, before the essence drained away. Thomas's body crumpled to the flooded street, cape drifting like a flag in the water. Central Sector Mechbat's sacrifice. Mechbat's targeting systems tracked Morlun instantly, locking on as the Predator approached the central plaza. The massive suit's shoulder cannons unleashed a torrent of plasma, forcing Morlun back into the cover of a half-collapsed parking structure. Bruce's voice cut in. "Don't engage alone." "Not alone," Mechbat said, voice strained. "I'm ending this here." The mech's chest plate split open, revealing the high-yield fusion core. Morlun realized too late what was coming. The explosion ripped through the plaza, shattering what remained of the buildings, and sending shockwaves across the entire city. When the smoke cleared, Mechbat was gone. So was half the block. Morlun stood in the center of the crater, coat scorched, skin blistered in places, but alive and smiling. The clock tower breach. Animated Batman and the Wraith had been guarding the tower's ground floor, but the blast from Mechbat's core had weakened the structure. When Morlun arrived, he didn't knock. He walked through the wall, bricks and steel bending around him. Animated Batman moved first, twin batarangs flashing through the air. Morlun swatted them aside like flies. The Wraith was faster, darting in with a blur of cape and blade, landing 3 deep cuts along Morlun's arm. The Predator barely flinched before seizing the Wraith by the neck and throwing him through a load-bearing column. The tower shuddered. Animated Batman landed a kick to Morlun's jaw, enough to turn his head, but when Morlun looked back, it was with the faintest hint of amusement. One hand shot out, gripping Animated Batman's chest, and the drain began. Animated Batman's limbs slowed, then stilled, his form dimming, until nothing but an empty shell remained. Final push. Bruce was already moving down the central stairwell, every step measured. He wasn't running. The traps were gone. The teams were gone. It was just him now, and the Predator was coming. Outside, lightning split the sky, framing Morlun's figure in stark silhouette as he stepped over the rubble. Bruce's cape shifted in the wind, his hand flexing over the hilt of a collapsible energy blade. One designed not to kill, but to sever the connection between a totem and its essence. They met in the rain, saying nothing. The siege was over. The real fight was about to begin. The storm swallowed the city. Rain hissed against the collapsed steel of the plaza. Lightning slashed across the horizon, and the skeletal clock tower loomed behind Bruce like a gravestone for every Batman that had fallen tonight. Morlun stood across from him, pale skin glistening with rain, each step toward Bruce measured and certain, like he'd already won, and the rest was just ritual. "Do you know what I will remember about you?" Morlun said, his voice almost gentle. "That you fought without the power you needed, that you still thought you could win." Bruce didn't answer. His gauntlet flexed, the collapsible energy blade snapping open with a hiss, its glow a sharp blue in the stormlight. Morlun moved first, his blur cutting the distance in an instant. Bruce sidestepped, pivoting to drive the blade at the Predator's ribs, but Morlun caught his wrist, twisting hard enough to make the joints pop. Bruce rolled with it, dropping the blade into his other hand and slashing upward across Morlun's chest. The cut sizzled, drawing a sharp, unnatural hiss from Morlun's throat. The Predator struck back with a backhand that sent Bruce crashing into the base of the clock tower. Steel groaned. Blood ran down his temple. He was on his feet before Morlun reached him again, firing a high-density charge from his gauntlet into Morlun's face. The flash blinded the Predator for half a heartbeat, enough time for Bruce to plant 3 shaped charges on his torso and detonate them. The blast threw Morlun through a derelict tram station, the roof collapsing in a rain of glass and iron. Bruce didn't wait. He followed, using the terrain like a weapon, grappling to a broken beam, swinging down to drive both boots into Morlun's spine, then vanishing into the shadows. Morlun turned slowly, scanning the darkness. "You're delaying the inevitable," Morlun called, his voice carrying over the rain. Bruce's voice came back from somewhere in the gloom. "No, I'm teaching you something." A line of high tensile cable snapped taut around Morlun's throat, yanking him backward into a jury-rigged electric grid. The current hit him hard, arcs of blue-white lightning dancing over his frame. He tore free with a roar, smoke curling off his coat, eyes burning hotter now. Morlun charged, grabbing Bruce by the chest plate and hurling him across the plaza. The impact knocked the breath from him, but his hand closed around the energy blade again. Morlun came in to finish it, and Bruce stepped into the strike, driving the blade straight through the Predator's side. The weapon flared, severing the metaphysical tether between Morlun and the essence he fed on. The Predator froze, eyes wide, the first real shock in his expression all night. "You think you've..." The blade twisted. Morlun staggered, the storm's roar swallowing his words. Bruce shoved him backward, planting an explosive in the wound before springing away. The detonation was deafening. Morlun's body collapsed into the waterlogged street, steam and ash curling into the rain. Bruce stood over the still form, every muscle screaming, his breath ragged. Around them, the storm began to ease, the city exhaling for the first time since the breach. Barry appeared at his side, having waited until the fight was done. "Is it over?" Bruce stared down at the remains. "For now." They left Earth, 479 in silence, the Mobius chamber sealing behind them. The map still showed too many red points, but Morlun's was finally dark. The screen is black. A slow, deliberate sound fades in. Tap, tap, tap. A dim light reveals a new figure in a decaying cathedral, somewhere deep in the multiverse. It is not Morlun, but the family resemblance is undeniable. Long white hair, ceremonial armor, and a thin smile curling as he drags a taloned finger over a blood-stained cowl pinned to the wall. Behind him, dozens of trophies hang. Not just Spider-Man masks, but bat cowls from across realities. The voice is low, amused. "My brother hunted the web. I hunt the bat." The figure steps into the light. Demas, one of the Inheritors. His eyes glint as he looks directly at the camera. "Let's see how long your shadows last."